BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
This is the Yungblud podcast, so turn up that volume. Happy! How are we all doing? Last year so much has happened, man. Like, it's been absolutely crazy. But one of the things that affected me most was the BLM protest, the Black Lives Matter protest. I was in LA at the time, and to be a part of such an incredible movement where everyone from every size, shape, personality, sexuality, whatever, came together for simply what is right. I think this is such a massive resemblance of people and the mindset nowadays that all we want is equality for every single person. This week, I'm going to be chatting to the rock star activist Mary. She's 18 years old. She's a biracial black woman from Virginia. She's a total activist fighting for both racial equality and LGBTQ plus equality. Earlier this year, she campaigned and won to have the name of her high school changed. What a badass. I couldn't wait to find out what drives her and like what is in store for her in 2020, 2020, 2021. As always, a strong language. Sorry about that. Sorry, not sorry. The BBC probably should not have agreed to do a podcast with me because I like beep swearing. Here's me chatting to the rock star activist Mary. Here we go. I am so excited for today's podcast. I got Mary. How are you, Mary? All right?
Good. How are you?
I'm really excited, man. I think like you are. This is the most excited I've been about a podcast. I think like to talk to you. I think the fire and the activism and the kind of the punk rock in you is absolutely off the scale. And you're from Virginia, right? So you are biracial African American, and you are also a lesbian, right? That's how you identify.
Yes.
How was growing up in Virginia?
It was tough for a long time. I mean, I grew up in a really small town in Virginia, so obviously like the norm is like white, straight,
Christian,
rich. Yeah, definitely. So it was rough for a long time until I kind of had to find my own community within other people.
Do you remember the first time you kind of became aware of like racial inequality as a kid, like within school or within your friendship group or within kind of society?
Yeah, when I was in the third grade, so I was like 9 or 10, I think, I heard someone say the N-word, and I'm not sure if it was directed at me or if it was directed at another student, but I heard them say it and I didn't know what it meant. So when I got home that afternoon, I asked my mom about what it meant, and she had to kind of sit me down and have that tough conversation about what it meant and how often I might hear it, especially where I lived. Yeah,
I mean, that must be so crazy because, as I say, like kind of as a child, everything, gender, colour, nothing is, you don't kind of get bombarded with what the world has in store for you yet. So I can imagine that must have been quite a weird moment. What you chose to do was insane to me. You have a fire that is just so commendable, and I couldn't wait to talk to you about it. You got the name of your school changed.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that? That is just crazy.
Yeah, so in June of 2020, there's a school in my county. I didn't personally go to the school, but I have friends that went to the school, and I have family members that will go to that school. So the name of the school was Stonewall Jackson High School, and it was named after a Civil War general who fought a war to keep slaves. And it was named after him. There was a monument of him there, and I talked to a bunch of students that said, the name kind of fuels a lot of racial tension. It's kind of honoring somebody who didn't even want us to be there. And for a while, the school was segregated when it first opened. So, yeah. So I got together with a bunch of other people, and they were like, let's just start this process to change the name and let's get it going, because our county has had multiple problems with racism, and they were like, we want to take action to stop it and, kind of get resources to slow this down. So I was like, why don't we just take this huge step and change the name of the school and stop honoring these people?
What did the community think? Did you get a lot of pushback? Did you have to fight a lot, or was it relatively smooth?
I mean, I had a lot of people around me rallying for me, and that was amazing. But I mean, it was an overwhelming amount of pushback. I mean, people did not want this to happen, and people are still fighting to change it back. I mean, we've had lawsuits. We've had, people there's a whole newspaper dedicated to changing the name back. It's insane.
Dude, that is so... I cannot, fathom how people can grasp so tightly onto hate and to oppression. I cannot fathom it. It's just something that does not even resonate within my brain. It's mental. It was so funny. I remember when we kind of... Chegg school books or university books. I remember Chegg offered us, this competition where if as many people, the most amount of people who voted in the high schools / colleges across America with Chegg would get me to come and play at the school. And it was a place called Hanford High School. And I remember the parents kicked off that I was going to come and play there. And Hanford was like, we need to decline Yungblud from coming to have a less controversial artist. And I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that was the thing, because the amount of people that voted must have been the kids who really needed the message, because obviously you know what Yungblud stands for, you know what the message is, we know what the thing is, and it's so crazy that people still try and fight actively to keep their ears and close-minded. And I think it's so sick when I meet someone like you, because I think we have the same blood running through us. We will not shut up. We will not sit down. We will not conform to an ideology that we don't believe in. And I think it's so insane. What did it feel like when you won? I bet it must have been pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was amazing. There was a school board meeting, and I didn't attend it in person, just because I knew that there was going to be a ton of people there and I didn't want to put myself in danger. So I went out to a restaurant with my dad, because he was like, you're going to win and we want to celebrate. So I went out to a restaurant with him, and we were listening in on the school board meeting as we were eating. And then when it came through that they voted to change it, I was insanely happy, because I actually didn't expect it.
Dude, incredible, man. That is just so sick. I've literally buzzed off that. I'm just so excited, man. That just makes me want to scream and be like, that's so cool that you were a part of that and you did that. How were the BLM protests in Virginia? What were they like? Because obviously last year the world was taken by storm, and it wasn't just America. It was everywhere. I was in LA at the time, but I remember France, London, the Netherlands, Australia, everyone was with it. And it was one of the moments in my life that I'm never going to forget. It was incredible. How was it in Virginia?
So in Virginia, I mean, there's a lot of conservative areas, so there wasn't a lot of protest within Virginia. I mean, there was that huge one in Richmond, and then where I live, we're about an hour and a half away from DC. So obviously there was a huge one in DC. But in my area, there was no word of it. They were like, we're not planning to have a protest. But then a girl that is older than me, her name is Jasmine, who is also biracial, she was like, no, I want us to have one. So we actually did have one in my very small town, and she organized the whole thing. It was amazing.
It was such a brilliant thing. I remember being in Cali, in California, and going out there, everyone from every size, every shape, every color. And I genuinely think there was a switch, there was a change. How do you feel about Biden getting in as president?
I'm really happy. I mean, obviously he's who I voted for, and I think that he's a good candidate. I am a little bit nervous about people kind of slowing down the process 100%. That we've been going through. I mean, people are like, once Biden's in, we're fine. No, we have to keep fighting. We have to keep going. So much work to do. Yeah, right. I mean, it didn't start with Trump. It doesn't end with Biden. So we have to keep going.
100%, because it's not one person that can change everything. It's conversation and an idea that people can't fathom. If they become educated on it, they start to realize it and then feel it. You cannot understand something without education. I think there was an incredible play called American Justice that I fell in love with, and it's about an illiterate person who was allegedly murdered a congressman's daughter, and the congressman goes to educate him. And it's kind of a dark story, but the congressman wants to educate him to make him realise what he actually did, because he didn't know what he actually did, and he didn't know that killing someone was wrong because he didn't think. It's the same idea. People do not know it is wrong until they know it is wrong, until it's educated. Because if you are taught the sky is green your whole life, you're going to believe it's green until someone educates you that it's blue. And that is how we win. It's not with one man. It's not with one woman. It's not with one person. It's not with... The answer doesn't lie in one thing. It is millions of us coming together, speaking, screaming, shouting, whispering, writing, tattooing, painting, spray painting the idea every single day until we achieve it. Have you always been pretty much of an activist, really? Have you always kind of wanted to get your opinion heard, or been very outwardly disagreeing to things?
I'd say so, yeah. I mean, more so now than ever, really. Because when I was in like elementary school and middle school, I really was kind of scared to speak out against things, just out of fear for me and, you know, my family. And now I'm kind of realizing that I wish that I had, you know, spoken out sooner. But when I got into high school, I, you know, found a better community of people who were like, nah, like, let's speak out against this, and let's, you know, make progress within our own community. I mean, somebody told me, you know, you don't have to, you know, change the world first. You start very small and then you work your way up. And I think that's a good piece of advice. That's
what I'm saying. Think locally and act globally. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, no, wait, act locally, think globally. I mean, it can work both way around. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's literally you change the world one village at a time. Legitimately, you do. You are, like, as I say, you've got multiple campaigns in the pipeline. You're planning a sexual education program for LGBTQ plus young people. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think I literally was speaking to people about doing something like that in the UK as well. I think there's so little information about homosexuality in sex education, and I think a lot of people can be frightened to death of what sex may be like because you're not taught about it and you have to figure it out yourself. Whereas I think in schools it should be spoken about. It should be treated just as seriously as straight sex and whatever you talk about, because it's integral. It's integral to kind of sex is integral to loads of people's lives, even if you disagree with it, even if you agree with it. It's a topic in people's lives. It should be spoken about from everyone's perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, people have been taking the push to make sex education more about sex, and like, you know, they teach abstinence, and it's like, you know, that's not working. We need to educate people more. And I mean, I'm like, if we're going to educate people about sex, we need to educate them about all sex. I mean, because it happens. It's going to happen.
Even if you're asexual, you need to be spoken about that in school to make you feel validated. Because that is a genuine thing.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends that are asexual, pansexual, you know, and they talk about when they came out, people did not understand it. Yeah, because nobody talks about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, we at least need to have a conversation.
If it's spoke about on the internet, it should be spoke about in schools. That's literally a thing. I think if there's anyone out there in education listening right now, please take that seriously. Please take the fact that young people's heads want to learn about this. What does school do? Teach young people about the world. So this should be spoken about. I think you're absolutely insane. Is there anything you want to say to anyone out there before we wrap this up? Because I just think you're a complete rock star, and I got to meet you, Mary. Honestly, I got to meet you.
What I want to say to people is just, if you've been thinking about taking a push to do something, just do it, because it will pay off. Even if you quote unquote lose whatever you're trying to do, you still made an impact on at least one person. And that's the biggest thing. If you make an impact, even on yourself, if you don't make an impact on anybody, you made an impact on yourself. And that's the biggest thing.
100%. Mate, you're insane. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. All my love to you. I can't wait to meet you. We're going to have such a good chin wag when we meet. Hopefully very soon when we're back in the venues. Have a wonderful day, man, and keep fighting, man. Keep fighting that good fight.
Thank you so much.
Fight,
you too.
We win. If we fight, we win. Mary, man, changing the world at 18 years old. If you see something that you think isn't right, then be like Mary. Speak out, say something, do something. If there is something in your mind, do it. Be proud of it. We can change this world together. I know that sounds hippie as hell, but it's true. If you want some more info or support or issues we talked about on this episode, you can find it by searching online for BBC Action Line. Tell everyone you know to listen to this podcast because it's sick. Stay safe. I love ya. All my cuddles. Metaphorically, obviously, it's COVID. Duh. See you later.